out on the Artist Point Ridge Trail near Mount Baker. Beautiful area. Lots of potential paintings here. This is Mount Shuksan. I'm gonna look for a place to set up that blocks the wind a bit. It's pretty breezy. I love this view. I'm gonna take some photos and maybe do a larger painting in the studio, but it's a little too windy from this point. I wanna find something maybe on the other side of the ridge there that might give me a little shelter from the wind. I'm afraid my panel might go flying, but just gorgeous views all around. Alright, well, I came down on these rocks following the trail and found a beautiful view of Mount Shuksan with these gorgeous old, I think those are hemlock and fir, craggy old things, beautiful old things, and even some shadow cast from this beautiful old tree, which is providing a little bit of a windbreak as well. So I'm going to set up here. The sun's going to be behind me the whole time, so I'll have to think about how I set my panel up. And also the wind is whipping up just a little bit now and then, so I'll have to weight down my easel as well. I'll get set up and take a few pictures on my iPhone and think about the composition. I think I'll go with an 11 by 14 inch panel since it's such a beautiful view and a beautiful spot. Here's my palette. I've got some colors left over from painting Mount Baker earlier today on this same road trip. The sky colors still match. I checked those, they still look good. I need to mix up a little more of this lightest value, yellowish blue. This rock, warm gray rock color matches that red stone pretty closely. I may have to add just a little bit of cad red, cad yellow to warm it up a bit in spots. These I can't use, they're just a little bit off, so I need to remix the distant rock colors. These are just a little off, a little rich. They seem, the rock colors on the mountain seem to be more gray, more pale tonight. The foreground tree colors look good, and the snow colors look good. Snow in the shadow, as it, not really in the shadow, but like the halftone as it shifts away from the light. The snow in the light, a pink and a yellow, very close to white. I need to mix up a little more of each of these. I've got some flake white, Utrecht flake white here. It's a lead white. Unfortunately, Utrecht discontinued this. I like painting with it, but can't get it anymore, so I need to pick a new lead white. Let me know in the comments below if you have a flake white, a lead white that you like. I like the flake white because it's a little more transparent than titanium white. I still have some of this titanium out, and it dries a little faster than the titanium white. Plus the consistency of it is just different. Some people describe it as ropey. It moves easily when you push on it, and then it just stops in place in a unique way. So it's kind of fun to paint with, kind of fun to experiment with. It is toxic, so you do have to be careful. Wear gloves, don't eat while you're painting, don't let your kids or your pets get into it. I'm going with an 11 by 14 inch Gorilla Painter well primed linen panel. I like the texture of it, like the tooth. I like how slippery it is, so that it works well with the turpentine wash approach. I'll use alizarin crimson on that background mountain. Nice cool red. Hints through, gives it a nice glow, but it doesn't interfere with the distance. It still gives the illusion of being a cool background color. When I look at the mountain too, I can see a warm, close to alizarin, really dim alizarin gray behind the bluish rock. So I'm gonna put that breeze is picking up, and I'm gonna have to anchor my easel. I'll put this foreground hill, something like that, and Mount Shuksan. I find keeping things angular at first helps. Try not to draw too many circles or curves at this stage. Keep things in straight line angles, segments of angles, especially with mountains and rocks. Throwing a little bit of ultramarine in there as well, just to hint at where I'm seeing some cools. Not really shadows, but just cool in the face of the stones. Okay, now down here, I'll go with burnt sienna and ultramarine for the pattern of trees. And things are, the fall line is kind of going like this, sweeps down. For the foreground trees, I'll mix in a little bit of cad yellow. Got this beautiful one right over here. And the trick here is to avoid any kind of regular pattern. So I want some clumps, odd numbers of trees, some tall, some short. I think I want one directly pointing at the peak here. I don't want it to be the same height as this, so I'll come up maybe a little taller. Now that's boom, I got a fence line going, so that one's, I can't put that one there. I'll have to put it over here a little bit so I don't have such a regular pattern. Your brain just wants to make things regular. And these are falling away, so I want the trees generally over on this side of the panel to be a little taller than the trees over here. There's actually a warm line of distant trees down here as well that I can hint at just a little bit. Okay, that's good for the sketch. I'll go ahead and switch to the turpentine wash. Take my usual old beat up bristle brush for the wash. Make sure it's clean from when I used it earlier today. I wipe it out on a cotton rag that I use over and over again. Alright, I'm going to go with just a touch of ultramarine and alizarin for the sky. Wind's really kicking up the dust. I might have a pretty dusty painting by the time I'm done here today. That's okay, just adds texture, right? Okay, I'm gonna add a little more turpentine and just wipe away some of the paint that's close to the horizon here. It's a little lighter. Go in with that same color, maybe just a little more alizarin. And dab in these rocks. I'll take away some of this thicker ultramarine too. These foreground rocks as well. I don't have to worry about preserving these trees I threw in earlier. They were just to give me a rough idea I can always look at where the lines are down below and pick out the path of the tree later. Now, I think I want to use a different brush, maybe the brush I sketched with, rinse it out just a little bit, and I'm going to do like I did earlier today with Mount Baker. I'm going to go with cad yellow for the snow. The snow at its lightest has a nice warm glow. It's perfectly fine if it's mixing with that alizarin, because the snow also has an alizarin, a pinkish cast in some places. I'm going to go back to where this tree was and just try to get some paint running as well and see if I can make an interesting effect for that tree trunk. Although the tree trunk is not warm, it's cool. That's okay, I can paint over it with a cool color and hopefully get an interesting effect. Okay, before that completely sets up, I want to go ahead and take a little stiffer evergreen, rosemary evergreen, and wipe away the lightest lights. So where I put this cad yellow on the panel, before it sets up real hard, I want to wipe it away and just leave the slight warm glow. Sun is shining roughly this direction, so the planes that are perpendicular to that will be the lightest and warmest. Got my gear set up so that these drips are falling on my lower panel, on my lower palette, not on the ground. It's kind of a nice zigzag of snow running across the faces, across the lower foothills. And then over here, there's this warm orange rock. So to help me with that, I'm going to throw just a little bit of cad red. I could do a little bit of this burnt sienna and cad yellow as well to make things harmonize, since I used those colors earlier. Okay. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit. I don't actually see this in the scene, but I want to carry it down just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my bristle brush. And map in some more of this warm mix for the foreground trees. I don't know if it's coming out on the video, but I can still see the tree trunk pattern that I put in earlier. Enough that I can follow it later, get some help from it. Things kind of cool off in the background over here, so I'm throwing in a little bit of that ultramarine and alizarin crimson mix. I want there to be a little bit of this foreground shadow pattern, so I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber and ultramarine blue and just throw in where I think this shadow might go. following this tree up a little bit, following this main, not main, but this beautiful old tree up. Another little one over here, kind of isolated. And another one here. Now, thinking about no tan, I've got a clump of dark here, I've got a clump of dark here, so I think I should just subtly connect that. I think if I put this little tree into some shadow, that little guy into some shadow, and connect it there, just subtle, and then connect that up to what's going on in the background here. Not too dark, but dark enough that when I squint, the rock is dark against the snow. Okay, I think that's good for the turpentine wash. Alright, now I'll clean off my palette and mix up those remaining colors. Alright, I got the colors mixed up. Give you a quick rundown. I hope you find it helpful. I'm always interested in how artists mix their colors, so I'm hoping you find it helpful when I give you a run through. Let me know in the comments below if you have questions or comments about the colors I use or the mixing I do. Anyway, here's a slightly more lavender, more purple blue shadow than what I'm seeing. The shadow I see here in person is a lot cooler and a bit darker. I didn't want to go that cool or dark since so much of the scene is cool. And then I've got some of the rock face, a little more blue, a little more yellow, a little more red, and here's this foreground red rock. Then I've got the foreground tan rock, kind of gray tan rock. I can dip into some of the snow color to lighten these up as well, where the sun is hitting the rock and catching some light. And I've got the background, that middle ground, trees, shadow, and sun. Sky colors, top of the sky, most of the sky, and then the lower horizon. That pale yellow I had mixed wasn't quite fitting the scene anymore. What I'm seeing now toward the horizon is more blue, so I mixed up a new color for that. And I've got some snow colors. These are the colors I had earlier, but I created more of the yellow, more of the pink. I added a kind of warm gray. It's a different color I'm seeing here where the snow is shifting over a plain. I'm also seeing this kind of electric blue under some of the glaciers, what look like glaciers. The ice under the snow is kind of glowing this blue, which is a different blue from the sky blue. Then some snow shadow. These are just extra colors from earlier. And then here are the foreground trees, a rich orange green, a rich brown green, tree shadows, which is kind of a warm brown green, and then some paler, higher chroma, a little more orange, a little more yellow than these background hills. So hopefully that helps pop the tree forward. I didn't bother mixing a color for the trunks of the trees. I think I can just use these snow colors and these shadow colors for that. Alright, I'll start with the snow patches again, like I did this morning. That worked out pretty well. Get that lightest light down on the panel so I can carve into it and not try to paint over shadow with a light, which can muddy it. Make sure I have a nice clean brush for this. You can see an extended cut, mostly real-time version of this video on my Patreon. The link is in the description below. Here I'm mapping in the snow colors, starting lightest and then next darkest, using the same brush. I paint over the edges a bit so I can paint back into them with the rock and the sky colors to get a nice soft edge. Now I begin to paint the rock in the distant mountain. I'm trying to capture the fall of the land with my brushwork, some long steep cliffs, some choppy rock falls. I don't want to paint detail with a small brush. Rather, I want to suggest detail with simple brushwork with a big brush. As I work toward the bottom of the panel into the middle ground, I continue with that same brush. I've pre-mixed all of the colors, but each color needs to be adjusted to create harmony and to roughly match the scene in front of me. I'm also painting a bit from memory, matching the lighting that I like best. I'm also painting from imagination a bit as the scene is constantly changing due to the moving sun and clouds. I'm not doing a lot of commentary on this one just because I'm trying to erase the light and the dark, and I have a little bit of a hike to get back to the truck, so I want to get it done. I may add some voiceover later. So I've got the rock and the snow in on the mountain. From a distance it looks nice. Up close it looks really messy, but that's okay. Sometimes that's a neat effect. We're getting some clouds now behind, so getting less light on the panel, which is helping, but we're also getting a lot of shadow on the mountain, which is changing the scene quite a bit. So I want to go ahead and map in the sky now and then the foreground trees and call it good. You guys changed quite a bit from when I started. It's a lot brighter down toward the horizon now, and it's really difficult not to follow that, chase that. So I am going to add just a little bit of this light blue that I mixed up for the snow down toward the horizon, and then otherwise use the colors that I mixed earlier. I want to slow down just a little bit here and get the shape of the mountain right. I'm watching the light on the mountain as I paint and noticing the lovely cloud shadows as they cross the mountain. Edgar Payne, a fantastic American artist and author, said if you paint clouds, you need to also paint cloud shadows. I think they add a lot of interest in most scenes. Using the same brush, I paint the trunk of the foreground tree where the light is hitting it. I find it helpful to create harmony to use colors throughout the painting, so I'm constantly testing colors I mixed for the background in the middle ground or foreground. If it doesn't work, I can scrape it off or paint another color into it to correct it. I changed tack here and with a large brush paint in the shadows in the foreground trees. I'm using a large brush and mapping in the big shadow shapes, roughly following the value pattern I established during the wash. Why paint the trunks first? You don't have to, but I find it helps to paint the trees, to paint the trunk first and then follow it by painting the branches or foliage without completely covering up the trunk. After painting the big shadow shapes, I then use that same large brush to paint the light struck foliage, or the big light shapes. I try to look at it as a big simple puzzle with big simple pieces, but I do try to create some texture, especially along the edges, to suggest detail. Well, here's where it ended up. I rushed at the end there, so the foreground is quite a mess. I may scrape it down and just leave the basic shadow pattern again and retry that back in the studio. It's just getting too dark and too windy here for me to keep going. I need to hike back to the truck, so I'll leave it there. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.